This is the last step that we have to sew on our shorts, but we're going to, again, every time we start sewing, we want to check to make sure that our machine is threaded correctly. Do a little bit of stitching, needle up, presser foot up. Just rewound a bobbin, and so my speed's up a little high. I'm going to punch it down. And because I want to be accurate with this step. The other thing is, I'm kind of far from the needle, if you notice right now, and that's because I want to remind you, for this step, we want to take the free arm off. And so I grab it with my left hand and pull it straight to my left. Take that out of the way. I'm going to move my machine a little closer now so you can see a little better. I also can move in with my zoom, but I'm stitching around the camera, so I don't want to be quite that far away from it. So here we go. We're going to come in here really close because I want to show you how we're going to line this up. We're going to use stitch number 1, and we're going to use the foot to help guide this. And I like, whenever I'm doing hems, I like to always start on the inner leg seam. And the reason why I do that is we have to usually overlap our stitching just a little bit, and it's easier to hide it in the middle there. So I am starting at the inner leg seam, and I want to line this foot up so that the little silver toe is hanging off. The rest of the foot is up top. So this is down in the valley. This is up on top of the hill. I'm going to drop my needle down so I'm right next to the edge. I'm going to grab those loose threads. Let me see if I can find them here real quick, so I don't have a thread blob on the other side. And I'm going to stitch a couple stitches forward, and then I'm going to back stitch a couple of stitches. And I don't have to do a lot here because this time, unlike when we did the casing where we left a spot open, this time we're actually going to go all the way around and overlap our stitching a little bit and then back stitch. So I only did a couple. Sometimes I don't even back stitch when I start, and I just make sure that I overlap at the end and back stitch at the end. All right, so I'm just going to stitch along here like this. I'm going slow right now just so you can see how important it is to be accurate. So we want this right next to the edge. This is about 1/8 of an inch. And you're thinking, 1/8 of an inch? If you line it up the way that I ask you to, you should be okay. All right, so I'm going to bump my speed up just a little bit, and that's because I'm experienced. I want to make sure that none of the rest of the stuff underneath here gets caught underneath my hem, and I want to make sure that my hem stays folded where it was. So I'm going to stitch a little faster. Remember, you always want to stop and take your pins, and probably thought, well, I'm almost on top of that. I was ahead of the pin. I stopped before my needle got to the pin. So sometimes I'll stop as soon as the pin touches the presser foot. Sometimes I go a little bit farther, but I never like to go over pins. I sometimes also, see how this wants to bump up a little bit here? Sometimes what I will do is, I'm not pulling real hard, but I will put a little bit of pressure. Let me see if I can back out just a little bit. I will put a little bit of pressure on this. Sometimes I put it in between my hands like this to just give a little bit of pressure. It keeps everything flat as I'm stitching along, because I don't want any puckers in my stitching. The ones on the inside won't show. I don't want them there. They won't show. I certainly don't want any on the outside, because they will show. And always check to make sure, and that's one of the things about having your hand underneath here like this as you're stitching. You can actually feel underneath there that you're not actually catching any of the rest of the shorts as you are sewing along. All right, I'm at the halfway mark, so I'm now to the side seam, and I just have to finish around, and then this is my final stage of my shorts, or if you're doing pants, it's the final stage of your pants. If you're doing pants, your hems are actually smaller because the bottom of your leg, where the ankle is not as wide as where it goes across your thigh, and that's where these shorts hit, is about at the thigh. Okay, Just a few more. We got a little more than 6 inches left. Always take your foot completely off of the foot pedal whenever you stop, and take pins out or wiggle around. If you need to do anything like this, make sure your foot's completely off, because you never want your machine to go when you are fiddling around the needle. I have had a couple of students stitch through their finger doing it. All right, so I'm almost back to the beginning, and I can see my thread tail here, and I don't want that to get caught up in the end. So I'm actually going to take my snips, and I am going to cut that before I overstitch it, before I come around and overlap, because that way I know it's not going to make a mess on the outside or on the inside. All right, so I'm still stitching. I want to make sure I overlap my stitches, maybe about by 1/2 inch. Do about 3 or 4 back stitches. Needle up, press your foot up, pull off to the left. Take your scissors and do that. Clip off those last couple of threads. And your next step at this point is to take a pair of scissors. You can use the little ones like this, and go through and check all of your seams. Make sure you don't have any loose threads anywhere. Then turn them right side out, and we are going to press them. After that, you're all done. I did my final pressing. I'm all done now. I hope you had as much fun making your shorts as I did.